Board, Vice President Chen, our faculty students. Hi, my name is Mo, and in today's presentation I'm going to talk about the literature on Israel and Taiwan. By the way, hi, Yaron, דרור, בוקר טוב. שמח שאתם מצטרפים אלינו. Well, I will start by giving a bit of background on the topic, then I will discuss three key tracks of research inquiry that are focusing on Israel and Taiwan, and I will conclude by giving some ideas for a future research agenda. So, as previous presenters already mentioned, slowly in recent years, we see a growing interest from both sides to cooperate in various policy areas, to know more about each other, to learn from each other's experience. Now we are not talking only about governmental agencies, ministries, the representation offices obviously, but also from civil society actors, from universities, private people, businesses, etc. And also you have the growing realization that we are not that different from each other, which is something that I will talk about soon enough. But beside a very promising present and future, it is important to mention that the past of Israel-Taiwan ties is quite fascinating. Now, maybe some of you might recognize the short gentleman. This is the first Prime Minister of Israel, David Ben-Gurion. But I would assume that most of you do not know the other person in the picture, although he is far more important to Taiwan. His name is Ernst Bergman, and he was the first chairperson of the Israel Atomic Energy Commission and could be considered as one of the founding fathers of the Taiwanese nuclear program in the 60s. He played a key role in that program. So I'm sorry, Meron, I'm going to use you quite a bit in this presentation. So beyond a vast, comprehensive relationship that are present, it is important to bear in mind that Israel and Taiwan share a very interesting past. Still, when you look about information regarding Israel and Taiwan, you don't find much. And this is unfortunate, and this begs the question, why is it the case? And if we start with the Israeli side, yes, there is a growing interest in the study of Asian countries, especially following the Israeli people to Asia. But in terms of political cooperation, security cooperation, cultural cooperation, even the size of Jewish diaspora, Taiwan is simply not important enough to the Israeli decision makers and as a result to Israeli academics. You have China, you have Japan, you have India. Taiwan is simply not that important. Same tendency you could find in the Taiwanese case. Obviously, most of the research is being done about the triangle, US, China, Taiwan, about expanding Taiwan's international space, about traditional allies, Japan, Europe, and even if we focus on the tiny community of the Middle Eastern studies in Taiwan, they focus on traditional allies and traditional relationships with Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia, like Jordan, and the region of the Gulf. So, my objective in this presentation and the paper that I published recently is to fill this gap in the literature and to understand, okay, what was written on the topic of Israel and Taiwan, covering sources in English, Chinese, and Hebrew. So basically try to find everything that was ever written about the link between Israel and Taiwan. And the first thing that you find, and that's something that was mentioned quite a few times in the presentations and in the opening speeches, the similarities. At the beginning, it sounds like a strange exercise to compare between those two countries. Yeah, they don't look alike, but they actually are. And it's remarkable to understand how many points of similarities you have between Israel and Taiwan. And here on the slide you have a couple of quotes and quite a long list of similarities between the countries. So a lot of comparison. And because of it, the two first tracks that I'm going to present based on those similarities. So the first track, which I call the comparative analysis track, is using Israel and Taiwan as case studies in comparative analysis. Yeah? So a couple of examples. Both countries face quite a lot of political issues and international isolation. So you had studies that measure the level of international isolation and what area states are doing in order to deal with this challenging issue. You have the topic, the policy area of development, because both Israel and Taiwan are considered as success stories, economic miracles. So to understand how they reached to that point, and obviously security and defense. Both countries face vast security challenges. So for example, in the case of Barak and Sheffer, it was about how security challenges, constant existential threat, and influence the political development of the country. Now, another track, which I call the educational track, is what both countries could learn from each other. So first, what Israel could learn from Taiwan and the Taiwanese experience. So here it's about cross-strait relations, the comparison between the conflict between Taiwan and China, and Israel and Palestine. And here, the angle is how Israel and the Israelis and the Palestinians could copy the very pragmatic relationship that Taiwan and China have in the context of economic relations, people to people, with avoiding all the sensitive issues that usually, hinder cooperation. But in comparison, you have a vast amount of studies that deal with the issue of how Taiwan could learn from the Israel experience. And for example, in terms of innovation, yes, both are considered as technological giants, but they are quite different from each other. Yeah? And Israel has built that startup nation built on innovation, and for the Taiwanese side, for example, they need or they want to know how Israel creates the regulatory environment that promotes innovation that Taiwan currently lacks. Another issue is that in Israel, there is a very strong connection between